Like many of us Zelda fans out there, when I was seeing the promotions for Tears of the Kingdom, I was a little bit worried that this game was just basically going to be DLC for Breath of the Wild. Same Link, same Hyrule, at least Zelda's got a new haircut. But now that the game has been out for a little bit over a month, I can rest assured that this game is no DLC. Sure, Tears of the Kingdom didn't reinvent the wheel, it's still using the same art style, the same game physics, and even some of the main quests is like Breath of the Wild. But despite how good of a game that was, no, how great of a game that was, Tears of the Kingdom feels like a true love letter for the 3D Zelda fans. So many staples have returned. The temples, sages, the big bad of the series. So let's take a closer look on why this game is the perfect sequel to Breath of the Wild. Not only does Tears of the Kingdom bring some new game mechanics to the table, as well as new regions to explore, but it also shines in one category specifically: its story. There's so much references to older titles, and it might be the most grandiose yet. Not to mention all the speculation to where this game fits on the already confusing timeline. I never thought that the timeline was all that important anyway. It's the legend of Zelda. I don't think it's very important on how one game from the 80s connects to a game today. I think the mystery is actually what makes it more alluring. But what we do know is that Tears of the Kingdom takes place 3 to 5 years after the events of Breath of the Wild. Link and Zelda go investigating deep underneath Hyrule Castle to find answers about the mysterious Zonai and this toxic gloom in the air. Wow, I'm actually playing alongside Zelda. I hope there's more of this co-op gameplay. However, things get ominous for the pair when they stumble upon this corpse with a phantomic hand holding it in place. And this corpse is nobody else other than Ganondorf. He finally has made his return and is more powerful than we have ever seen him. He maims the hero and destroys the Master Sword with little effort.
Rauru placed his faith in you. And that was all you could do.
And then continues to display his power by raising the entirety of Hyrule Castle into the sky. Causing the entire cave to collapse in the process. Zelda falls during the chaos, and Link is unable to save her due to his tainted arm. However, both are saved by mysterious means, and from here the story is told from two different perspectives: Link's and Zelda's. Link awakens in a chamber and realizes he has a new arm that emits a light as brilliant as emeralds. Link has officially joined the Swordsman with a Prosthetic Hand Badass Club. Link is visited by a ghostly figure, Rauru. Rauru explains that the Great Sky Island was once home to the Zonai, the race that helped in the kingdom's creation. Rauru tells Link that his old arm was beyond saving and had to give him a new arm. His arm. This new arm will give Link some Zonai abilities, and must prove himself by completing shrines in order to unlock them. Rauru ultimately gives us our task to find Princess Zelda, and sets us off on our adventure. The first part of this game really hits the same beats as Breath of the Wild. We have our tutorial area with the Great Sky Island, and will guide us on the new game mechanics. Veterans will explore and forage as much as they can, and newcomers will have no issue with finding instruction, thanks to Rauru and the non-aggressive constructs spread out all over the island. I won't take too long going over foraging and cooking since these mechanics were introduced in Breath of the Wild, but there's one elixir in particular that fixed a major issue from Breath of the Wild, and that is the non-slip elixir. Finally, you don't have to wait out the rain to climb. The Great Skyline Island has many delights as you journey from shrine to shrine. You can test your combat abilities against the constructs, hunt game, and make several new discoveries. Caves are already far more prominent in this sequel, placing Link in complete darkness as he travels through the mines and tunnels. I was amazed when I first saw the Booble Frog. When I saw the design of it, I remember being so excited to see all the new creatures in this game, and some not so new. The return of the Like was awesome and disturbing at the same time. They really nailed the design. Link comes across more Zonai technology, like turbines, gliders, even a whole mining facility for processing Zonite, the rare rock found on the island and in caves, to power the machines. The first shrine on my quest gave me Ultra Hands, an ability that gives Link the power of creation, by picking objects up and binding them. Link now can assemble vehicles, gadgets, and other random innovations. This opens the sandbox up for finding different ways around a problem. Need a bridge? Zipline? Speedboat? Link and the player are now on Fortnite and Minecraft levels in terms of ingenuity. The next shrine sees Link get the Fuse ability, which combines two articles together to create something new. Weapons can break in this title, but now you can reinforce any weapon with something you find, either from your inventory or just laying around. Crush boulders and rocks with a makeshift hammer. With this new power, Link is never at a disadvantage when it comes to bearing arms. Ascend is the power we acquire next, enhancing Link's mobility tenfold. Now with Raru's quest completed, Link soars back to the Temple of Time via Zonai Glider, and opens the doors to this archaic sanctuary. Link finds a bigger version of the object he saw in the caves, and when he approaches it, he finds himself in a levitating Zelda in an ethereal plane. Zelda breaks her prayer formation, reaching out to Link, and bestows upon him another ability, Recall. Link can now rewind time for a specific object. A suitable ability if you ask me. But Link's time here isn't complete. Another mighty door stands in his way, and the only way through it is a test of vitality. Rauru tells Link he must complete one more shrine in order to pass. Using his newfound ability, Link completes the ordeal. And just like the shrines prior, he receives a blessing of light, and begin to give Link his strength back. Now holding 4 blessings, he can pray to the goddess Hylia and increase the number of hearts he has. Link uses all of his might and opens the behemoth doors and ascends to an altar. A glowing orb calls out to Link's shattered Master Sword and absorbs it. Next we see Zelda, appearing in a different realm, or time, receiving the blade.
Link! You must find me.
Now having departed from his precious Master Sword, Link summons his courage to seek out Zelda's exact whereabouts by plummeting to the surface of Hyrule. One of the first places that we go of interest is Lookout Landing, which ended up being one of my favorite locations in the game. This small fort acts as a headquarters for those who resist the gloom and the monsters. Link can stock up on supplies, cook, and even pray to the goddess for more stamina or hearts if he has enough blessings of light. On Link's arrival, the Resistance fighters can't believe their eyes. They haven't seen Link or Zelda since they disappeared under the castle. And the game isn't really clear on just how much time has passed since then. A familiar face, Pura, gives Link his main duties, which are to investigate the regional phenomena that are going around Hyrule Kingdom and getting the Sky Towers back online. Down below, Link can assist the monster hunters and even accept bounties for the larger monsters. This is the best hub area I've personally experienced in a Zelda game. You can't find everything here, but it definitely has the essentials. Not far from Lookout Landing are the horse stables. Not only can you get horses from your Breath of the Wild save data, but many side missions start at these inns. A notable side quest is getting all 4 great fairies out of their flower beds, so you can enhance Link's armor. It's a fun little side quest that involves you bringing together a music troupe by solving problems with your Ultra Hand ability and with Zonai technology. The outcome is well worth the grind. I think there is a direct correlation between how strong your armor is and the weapons that you find. I noticed that I was finding a lot more weapons that had more attributes to them after I had upgraded Link's armor sets. Korok seeds can be found at every nook and cranny, and Hetsu can be found back at Lookout Landing. And just like in Breath of the Wild, he will increase your weapon stash if you trade him for the Korok seeds. It appears that most of the Sheikah technology is gone, but shrines are still all over the place. I try to knock out as many of these as I can, because not only are they fast travel points, but they're going to make Link stronger. In this stage of the game, I simply call it my shrine grind. That way I can max out Link's stamina to have the best mobility. Shrines in this game are on par with the ones in Breath of the Wild, except these may be a little better. But I gotta say, I do miss the ambient music from the Sheikah shrines. Some strip you down of all of your belongings, or maybe they'll just focus on an aspect of combat. Then there are shrines that focus on your Zonai abilities. Which again, these abilities are just so well utilized in this game. I would say even more so than your Sheikah Slate was. And there's a big fun factor in solving the puzzles with them. A highlight for me was the shrine where you go and mow down constructs with a vehicle of your making. It was the perfect sandbox to display your creativity with the Zonai tech. Some shrines will have you go and fetch a stone and bring it back in order to complete it, but I wasn't the biggest fan of these. They just felt a little too fetch quests for me. But once you're done completing some shrines, there's still plenty to do in Hyrule Kingdom. The village on the southeastern coast, Lurelin, is experiencing a raid by pirates that must be defeated in order to end their occupation. I thought this whole concept was sick. And there's plenty of other situations like this where you have to fight a whole slew of baddies with a monster hunting crew. I just can't get enough of these giant battles in Hyrule. It felt like Breath of the Wild was missing something of this scale, and I think it speaks highly to the level of immersion that this game has to offer. Perhaps the best part of this game is just the giant monsters you come across in the open world that are basically like boss battles. Lionels were the thing to take out in Breath of the Wild, but this time around, it's definitely the Gleeoks. Massive 3-headed dragons that normally lord over an area. It took me a couple tries to take down just one of these. I highly recommend fusing your arrows with the respected element type to maximize your damage. Otherwise, you'll be using twice as many arrows. Then there's the King Gleeok. Each head has a different elemental ability which kicks up the challenge. This boss fight requires you to use your items in tandem with your Zonai abilities. Either use the updraft from the fire or lightning, or use recall to ride the ice back in the air so you can get in range. Boss Moblins aren't exactly a boss fight, but considering you have to take down 7 or 8 Bokoblins at a time makes it for an exciting ordeal. Plus there's this new game mechanic where the boss Moblin will blow a horn, making the Bokoblins attack in unison. But during my playthrough there was one thing I noticed the game doesn't give you enough of. Arrows. You will run through these like nothing else. In Breath of the Wild, I was stacked at all times with all sorts of different arrows. But now I'm spending rupees left and right on them. But then again, this is a far more realistic take on the currency and the resources in Hyrule. And speaking of rupees, you're going to have to find out ways to make more. Whether you go mining for valuable rocks, go do some monster bounties, or even check off some side quests. Rupees are far more valuable in this game than ever before. of the Wild gave us this titanic kingdom surrounded by beautiful landscapes. But in its sequel, it allows you to get a bird's eye view of everything. Every time I glide at this altitude, I just get hypnotized by this panoramic view. Getting into Hyrule Sky is actually a lot easier than it looks. Not only do the sky towers blast you into the atmosphere, but Link's recall ability will take you most of the way. Now, getting from Sky Island to Sky Island is the tricky part, and will require some ingenuity from the player. This is why I recommend getting more stamina than hearts. Being able to fly further will aid you in your exploration. Like Link has his stamina wheel, Zonai technology has their battery life, and expanding it is the best way for Link to travel in this game. On the island you start on, near the Room of Awakening, a steward construct can assist you in getting more energy wells for your Zonai devices. And trust me, your time in this game will be a lot easier if you stay on top of this, considering how much battery life the Zonai technology siphons. The sky is home to many puzzles and challenges, like skydiving through rings, labyrinths, and plenty of shrine quests. There's even a few temples that are up there. Flux constructs can be found on their own islands, where Link and the player can engage them on their own free will. But honestly, I can't really say I'm a big fan of this boss fight. Sure, the first and second versions aren't that hard to take down, but by the time you get to the third version, it keeps on shifting its weak points with the other blocks. But I also think that the constructs were used a little too much in this game. To add to my disappointment, there's not much else to say about the Sky Islands. I was hoping that there would be more to offer. You start out on the biggest Sky Island of all, and I wish that there were more islands of this scale. The Zonai were said to be the descendants of gods, and The Legend of Zelda has plenty of deities that's lore and backstory could have been explored here. I think it's pretty crazy how we have these 3 dragon spirits bearing similar names to the 3 golden goddesses, and yet no real information on them. It just seems like a missed opportunity to flesh out the mythos in this franchise. This is reinforced when you factor in that Tears of the Kingdom introduced Draconification. What if there was a whole side quest about the 3 dragon spirits? This concept feels way too big for Nintendo not to address, so maybe it will be in a DLC for the game. Despite the Sky Islands not exactly meeting my expectations, there's a whole other section of the game that absolutely blew me away. In Tears of the Kingdom's promotions, we all saw the Sky Islands, and we saw how we could navigate in Hyrule's atmosphere. But this section completely blindsided me. The depths. When I had the realization that the depths expanded across the entirety of Hyrule, I was in disbelief. Hyrule Kingdom is 80 square kilometers and has an entire subterrane that is waiting to be explored. This area is basically the more challenging half of this game's open world. Enemies are coated in gloom, which minimize your max health. Oh yeah, and you literally have to traverse the pitch black abyss until you find the area's light route. This area's aesthetic is one of my favorites from any Zelda game. The cool tones mixed with the fantastical flora just creates a unique atmosphere for this franchise, especially paired with the particle effects. And the horn that bellows as you skydive through the chasms are just iconic, serving as a reminder that you are indeed in the belly of Hyrule. There are collectibles, missions, and you can even stumble upon the bosses down here, so you can get a rematch anytime you want. Making a return, Master Koga and the Yiga clan can be found down here at different mines and fortresses. Battling Master Koga and the Yiga clan are paramount in order to get more Yiga schematics, which will help create Zonai vehicles to aid in your exploration. Master Koga's boss battles are pretty good. I'm not a big fan of his character. He's a bit too much of a goofball for me. I would have much rather have seen a more serious ninja villain than this.
Weakness of any kind completely revolts me.
Many treasure chests contain armor from previous iterations of the hero, like Skyward Sword and Ocarina of Time. Pose make a return, but just serve as a tradable item for these mysterious statues, whom I believe are modeled after the people who used to live down here. I was really hoping to find a whole civilization of them, but no such luck. Maybe one of the biggest challenges in the game are the Colosseums that you'll find. These arenas challenge you with waves of monsters to cut down. I do have a few criticisms about this area though. The surface of Hyrule uses several color palettes to paint a canvas, but the depths lack that variety. As I said earlier, the aesthetic of the depths is a marvel, with all the giant roots and rigid rocks everywhere. But when you consider the size of the depths, it's needless to say that this loses its novelty. The only regions of the depths that stand out are the ones that are underneath Death Mountain. I mean, you got these sweet lava beds, magma falling from the cave ceiling, all of these skeletons, the lighting, the temperature, like this place is awesome. Man, if they would have just committed the same details to the other regions, like, I don't know, maybe make it colder under the Hebra region, have some ice sticking from the ceiling. And when you consider the variety of regions that are on the surface, it's just a little disappointing. The surface also has tons of different architecture throughout the land, and the only architectural structures that you're going to see down here are just going to be the mines, with an exception of some temples and statues. But now, since we've talked about the three main areas, let's go ahead and get to the main quest. Now that we've gotten some side quests and shrines complete, it's time for Link to investigate the regional phenomena. A torrential blizzard pierces the Tabantha region. A new rock plagues the Gorons. This mucky sludge pollutes Zora's Domain's waters. And a mysterious sandstorm makes the Gerudo Desert almost impossible to cross. Despite this being just like Breath of the Wild, I think there is a lot more payoff with the characters that are introduced and their development in this game. Each region has a protege that has a mastery over the associated element with them. Tulin of the Rito and his mastery of the winds, Unibo the Goron and his control over fire, Sidon the Zora Prince and his manipulation over water, and Riju the Gerudo Chief and her ability to cast lightning. All of these characters will actually aid Link on his quest, giving gameplay a more strategic element. Link must help each of the races restore their region by finding the temples that reside in them. Some are in the sky, on the surface, or even in the depths. And luckily for some of these temples, finding them feels just as tricky as the actual temples themselves. I mean, some felt really easy due to the designs, which was pretty disappointing for me. Temples and dungeons are one of my favorite aspects of a Zelda game. You can imagine my disappointment in Breath of the Wild when the Divine Beast just really couldn't measure up. But anyway, let's talk about the Wind Temple. Getting to this temple was so much fun because you literally have to get to the highest place on the map. On the way, you engage in aerial combat, use these sails to traverse the sky. I'm not gonna lie, this was one of those times where getting to the dungeon was better than the actual dungeon. This is just a great mix of platforming and combat. The temple itself feels like a mix between the traditional temples in past 3D Zelda games and the Divine Beasts, with the biggest similarity being that you have to find 4 or 5 panels to activate in order to unearth whatever is causing the regional disaster.
Yes, you got one flowing.
And the Wind Temple has one of the most entertaining boss fights. Colgera. I absolutely love the design of this boss.
That thing must be what's causing the blizzard!
The fight takes place in the air, and if you've been pouring your Blessings of Light into stamina, you can take down this boss easy. I mean, his weak points are like the size of the temple itself. The next region is Death Mountain. Something inside the volcano is creating a new rock that the Gorons just can't get enough of. Link reunites with Unibo, and together they go investigate. The Fire Temple takes place underground and is probably my least favorite. I found the minecarts confusing and not even needing to use them because you can just climb or glide everywhere, or even use your Ascend ability. This design choice just feels like an oversight, especially when other parts of the game utilize the cart combat better. Not to mention Unibo felt way more difficult to use compared to Tulin. He's just so big and awkward, whereas Tulin can just fly with you everywhere. His Sage ability is useful though. Seriously, his ability is great for mining for valuable gems. The Goma boss fight was pretty good, although I'm not a fan of the design. Previous iterations have just looked more aesthetically pleasing, and they're all over 20 years old. Moving on is Zora's Domain and the Water Temple. I thought the beginning of this mission felt very Fetch Quest-esque, but it does set up some interesting riddles to solve. But man, Sidon's ability is just underwhelming. I hardly use it because using my own resources just works better. Sure, you can whistle to call your allies to you, but it's always quicker to just use an item in my inventory. On a positive note, the Water Temple itself uses its water mechanics really well. The decision to make the gravity weaker in this area attributes to the puzzles that need to be completed. There's no more changing water levels. At least not in the same scale in the past water dungeons. Instead, you're utilizing giant orbs of water to complete tasks. The biggest issue I had was the open layout. The design felt a lot less like a temple and just a conjunction of water-based puzzles to complete. Muktarok was actually one of the most challenging bosses. He slips around in the muck and shields himself with the body of a shark. If it wasn't for the challenge he imposes, I'd say this guy is played as a gag due to his design. But overall, I had a lot of fun with this boss fight. But if you fight him again in the depths, he is way more challenging due to the lack of that gravity mechanic. That was essential for using your slow motion ability when you're aiming with your bow and arrow. The final region is also the best all around. Riju is just awesome and has a phenomenal ability for Link to use. Together, you can call down lightning and damage multiple enemies at once, which is perfect for the quest. A swarm of Gibdos have arrived shortly after this massive sandstorm has cut off the Gerudo from the rest of Hyrule, and it's up to you to find out why. This requires Link to stop an all-out invasion in Gerudo Town, which was an awesome concept, and we need more missions like this in Zelda. After that, Link must solve a riddle found on a mural, which will reveal the Lightning Temple. Finally, a temple that feels like a traditional dungeon from a Zelda game. Having to use mirrors to shift the light is a staple from this franchise, and it's always a welcome game mechanic if you ask me. Out of all the temples, this felt like it has the most structure and was like the most planned. It actually has some brain-teasing puzzles to solve, but undeniably the best part about this temple is its boss. Queen Gibdo has a fantastic design. Everything to how she moves, her weakness to sunlight. She's probably the best boss in the game, and you get to fight her twice. When she goes into phase 2 and calls upon her Gibdos to fight alongside of her, I mean, this sequence is just chaotic and I loved every second of it. It definitely took me a couple tries to take Queen Gibdo down. When you take down each of the dungeon's bosses, your allies are greeted with the sages of old.
Yes, your ancestor from a time long past.
I served the first king of Hyrule as a Zora warrior and a sage who, like you, could direct the flow of water.
Who passed the torch to their ancestors by revealing their destiny to help Link slay Ganondorf.
Yunobo, Little Rock, take up my secret stone and honor the pledge I made to the Sage of Time long ago.
Fight the Demon King with the swordsman Link.
Overall, I think this section worked better than it did in Breath of the Wild. Instead of trying to connect with somebody who's already passed away, Link is connecting with the new generation and helping them fulfill themselves.
I am the Sage of Fire!
It also helps that we've formed a relationship with him at this point, and we're only halfway through the story. Up until this point, Zelda's whereabouts are unclear. She has been seen ushering in monsters around the temple sites.
Your Highness.
So Link goes to Hyrule Castle to get answers, and after a mediocre rush of monster battles, he finally catches up to Zelda.
I have been waiting for you to arrive. There is something here I want to show you. After all, this place will be the last thing you ever see.
But as it turns out, this Zelda is merely a puppet for Ganondorf, an illusion to cause strife in the kingdom. This leads to one of my favorite parts of the game, where you battle Phantom Ganon. His design and moveset I thought were super appropriate. The sounds that he makes, it's very reminiscent of the Nazgul from the Lord of the Rings trilogy, which I thought was just excellent. Instead of fighting some giant monster, things slow down for this epic duel. I think the backdrop is great. Everything about this atmosphere is just chef's kiss, man. This is where the difficulty really heightens, and you have to use more of your resources than before. Phantom Ganon is always surrounded by gloom, so when it touches you, it's already minimizing your health. And yeah, this is true for any monster that has gloom on them. When Link gets thrown into a corner, the sages come to his rescue, only for Ganondorf to reveal what they're really up against.
Allow me to show you the world that was and will be again when I have been restored. Sweep over Hyrule with the power I have granted. Eliminate this kingdom and her allies. Leave no survivors. You see, you cannot hope to escape your fate.
The horrors they witness in Ganondorf's prophetic vision make them realize that there is still one more sage to be found, leading to the next part of our grand quest. Above the Faron region, Link finds an artifact, one belonging to the sage's spirit. The artifact leads Link underground, where he must construct a body for the spirit sage to animate, which I thought was pretty clever. But the fact that we got a construct dungeon instead of a spirit dungeon is a little disappointing. The constructs are just shoved down your throat in this game. They literally appear in every region and in every temple. And I would have rather seen more native monsters than battling these robots that sometimes take me out of the whole fantasy setting. The dungeon, or construct factory, actually is designed pretty well. And being able to control the sage's body afterwards was awesome. It makes traversing the depths far better than it was before. You can finally just walk over the gloom that is spread out everywhere. After taking the mech for a spin, we arrive at the real Spirit Temple. That really just acts as an arena for the boss fight. And this literally turns into Rock'em Sock'em Robots. I didn't expect to see this kind of thing in Zelda. So points for being unique. The best part though is that slick Star Wars reference.
Hello there.
General Kenobi.
With all the sages accounted for, we need to go over something else before we can progress. It's important to understand the other perspective I had mentioned earlier, Zelda's. Zelda's side of the story is revealed by Link visiting these designs found across Hyrule, coined as geoglyphs. Each one is harboring a memory of Zelda. When Zelda falls in the beginning of the game, her dormant powers are activated by this stone that she found, or simply known as the secret Zonai stone, and it transports her back in time. These stones allow for the user to channel their abilities more efficiently and serve as MacGuffins of the narrative. They are the items that your allies get once you complete a temple, making them the new sages. In the past, Zelda meets the first king and queen of Hyrule, Rauru, who is one of the fabled Zonai. and Sonia, a Hylian woman. Rauru and Sonia have powers over light and time respectively, and note that Zelda has both of these abilities inside of her.
Additionally, I sense that we share a blood connection.
Sonia and Rauru try to help Zelda find a way to get her back to her time so she can help Link in the present. While they look for an answer, Zelda hones her ability over time with Sonia and helps them deal with a new invader, the King of the Gerudo,
Hyrule will bow down before me.
Ganondorf. When Ganondorf fails to overcome the newly founded Kingdom of Hyrule with force, he concocts a plan of deception.
That blast wiped out all the Molduga!
So brute force will not be enough. The secret stone of the Zonai.
Zelda notes that she believes that this man is the same person from the present and is trying to warn Rauru. However, Rauru's good-willed nature allows for Ganondorf and the Gerudo to pledge their fealty to the kingdom, a decision that will not age well. And when the opportune moment comes, a visage of Zelda leaves Sonia open for a fatal attack. Ganondorf backstabs Sonia and rips away her stone, and this is his ascension in becoming the Demon King.
Finally, it is mine! Strength surging.
Sonia!
You are too late, Rauru. You took for granted the godlike power you had in your hands. As for her, she is merely the first victim of your arrogance.
Ganondorf!
Queen Sonia needs you!
Not even Rauru can stop him alone, which leads to the first formation of the Sages, the same Sages we encounter in the temples in the present.
To serve Rauru, the King of Light.
But despite their noble efforts, the Sages are no match for Ganondorf. Seeing no alternative, Rauru sacrifices himself in order to imprison the Demon King, and this cutscene solidified my desire for an animated Zelda series or anime. It's so well choreographed, it's so epic.
That pride will be your downfall, Ganondorf!
Rauru's character arc comes full circle here, as he takes complete responsibility for Sonia's death and the birth of the Demon King.
But are you ready to pay the price for this?
Don't be so smug. I know exactly what it will cost me. Years from now, someone will appear with the sword that seals the darkness. A swordsman with the power to defeat you, Link.
Making him one of my favorite characters in the series. But even with the Demon King in prison, Zelda is still stuck in the past. While consulting with the Sage's spirit, Minru, Zelda learns the process of draconification. By swallowing a Zonai Stone, the user is transformed into an immortal dragon. That way, Zelda would live all the way into the present day. But there's a catch to this. Becoming an immortal dragon comes at the cost of losing oneself. But seeing no other way to get back to Link's time, she sacrifices herself and undergoes the ritual. Back in the present, when Link has all of the sages accounted for, and discovers that the Light Dragon is indeed his friend, he consults the Great Deku Tree for guidance. The Deku Tree tells Link that the dragon does have the restored Master Sword, and it's up to Link to acquire it, mirroring Breath of the Wild. Claiming the Master Sword tests Link not on his vitality, but on his stamina, and is one of the most unique ways to get the blade. I mean, I would not have expected pulling a sword out of a dragon's forehead in the heavens, but man, I'm so glad we got it. With the Master Sword in hand, there's nothing stopping us from making our way to the Gloom's point of origin, so we can confront the Demon King. And this has got to be one of the most epic finales in the series. Just getting to Ganondorf is a challenge. You have to navigate through the chasms beneath Hyrule Castle, and then finally plunge into the deepest region of the game. Here you battle Ganondorf's army with the sages, before you go and face him alone.
The rest is up to you.
Ganondorf's chamber makes you feel isolated. The poison flowing in these roots are a clear indication of his cancerous presence. The developers really gave this Ganondorf the best treatment.
It would have been more satisfying to overcome a worthy foe.
His portrayal is nothing short of what I expect from someone with the title of Demon King.
Do not look away. You witness a king's revival.
The fight that ensues is a lot like battling Phantom Ganon, a one-on-one duel.
I've barely gotten started.
Unlike any other boss fight in the game, Ganondorf can dodge your attacks, a lot like how Link can dodge to initiate a flurry rush. The slow-mo effect just fits the scale of this duel. It truly feels like these two warriors are engaging in some crazy anime combat. Like Link, Ganondorf can use a plethora of weapons, each with their own moveset. There's a few phases in this battle. The first is against Ganondorf's Gerudo form, then against him as the Demon King, and that health bar reveal was just as intimidating as his aesthetic.
Enjoy these final moments. I will be taking far more than you're on this time.
When Ganondorf uses his sword, it was so difficult to parry. I just cannot read his attacks very well. However, when he used the spear or club, it was far easier to find an opening. I had to use so many mills in this fight. You really gotta watch that Gloom, or else it will eat at you until you have no health left. I wouldn't change a thing though, this was just how a final boss should be. Toward the end of their duel, Ganondorf swallows his stone out of desperation, and transforms himself into a fearsome dragon. Clenching Link in his jaws as he flies to the surface. Zelda comes to Link's rescue and they battle this demonic dragon in the skies of the kingdom. This is where the game's symbology of the two dragons on the logo come to fruition. The imagery, the music, cinematography in this sequence is just breathtaking. This phase really isn't about difficulty than it is spectacle, and it's well earned. You've done the hard part already. Now the game delivers on giving us this epic backdrop for its finale. As Link and Zelda exploit the weak points on Ganondorf's serpentine body, Ganondorf summons one last Blood Moon, and all that's left is for Link to deal the final blow. After that, I would assume that Ganondorf is gone for good. With the evil expelled from Hyrule, Link is transported to this ethereal realm where Sonia and Rauru help turn Zelda back to her human form. And the last thing there is for you to do is to go catch your falling princess. Tears of the Kingdom brings light to several reoccurring events in the Legend of Zelda's mythos. Hyrule's genesis, the rise of a tyrannical enemy, the imprisoning war, and maybe, just maybe, the end of this great tale. And Ouroboros is used in myths to signify infinity. Link, Zelda, and Ganondorf have been locked in a never-ending tale of good and evil for generations now. And when Zelda says,
He's gone. The Demon King. I'm not in a dream, right? You did it.
you want to believe her. But there's an issue. Nintendo is never going to give up on its cornerstone IP. In fact, the Ouroboros may enforce that these events are destined to go on. This may be the game that turns the timeline into a time loop. Guys, I might be a Zelda simp, but I thought this game was fantastic, and I am sure I'll have another playthrough with it in the future. But until next time, guys, y'all be good. Peace.
Thank you. Link, I met such wonderful people. I saw Hyrule as it was. I have so much to tell you. So much happened. Oh, Link, I'm home.